You can call me Mystic Mike because I predict these things.
Brandon Moreno takes on Steve Erceg this Saturday as the main event of UFC Fight Night Mexico City. And this is going to be a very high-level matchup between these two guys at Flyweight. Very, very skilled fighters. This is one of the, I think one of the most evenly matched main events we've had in a long time. These guys are both very well-rounded, very good strikers, very good grapplers. Both have endless gas tanks. Fought really good competition, so I'm really excited for this matchup to see really who comes out on top and really inserts himself back into the title picture. We see a lot of rematches in the flyweight division in the UFC, so it's good to see some new matchups, some guys who haven't really faced each other get a crack at each other to get into the the top 5, top 3, get their name up there for a title shot. So Steve Erceg burst onto the scene back in 2023 with a win over a ranked opponent in David Dvorak, followed that up with a win over Alexandre Costa, and then knocked out Matt Schnell to get a title shot against Alexander Pantoja. You can argue that maybe he won 3 of those 5 rounds, but again, had a very good showing, but ended up losing that decision against Alexandre Pantoja, which again, no shame in that. Pantoja's the champ for a reason. Very good fighter, very well-rounded. Followed that title shot loss up with a first-round knockout loss to Kai Kara France, who has a lot of power on the feet. Very good striker. So no real shame in these 2 losses in the UFC. Looking to bounce back against a really tough opponent in Brandon Moreno. So Brandon Moreno, perennial top contender, former champion. Looked very good in the UFC as of late. Came into the UFC back in 2016. Ended up getting cut and then coming back about 1 fight later to go on a run, which included winning the title and then losing it eventually. So very skilled fighters in their own right. Brandon Moreno, tons of experience at his age. He's 31 years old, 22, 8-2. 8 losses on his record, but it's only to top-tier fighters. Pantoja, Davison Figueiredo, Sergio Pettis, who's a champ in other organizations, Brandon Royval, who's always up there as one of the top fighters. But very good striker, has a great jab, long reach, really good left hook, powerful left hook that he's dropped several people with in his career, and very good defense on the feet with just an absolute granite chin. He's been dropped before, but never put away. Just very good boxing. Was at a boxing center gym for the longest time. Strikes to all levels, jabs, head kicks, body shots, does everything very well. Defensive grappling, has good jiu-jitsu, gets up off of the ground very well. Taking on Steve Erceg, who national champ level wrestling, martial artist since he was very young. Doesn't really have the experience, but very good striking, big for the division, great cardio. Like I said, very evenly matched fight, but I'm leaning towards Brandon Moreno to get this one done. I think he's got a better chin. I think he can stand with Erceg on the feet and land very good punches. Take what Steve Erceg is throwing and dish it back. I think he's just got a little bit more experience than Steve Erceg does in these high-level fights. He's a jiu-jitsu black belt since like 2021. Goes for takedowns. If he gets taken down, he has a sense of urgency, doesn't settle on the ground. He springs back up or gets himself back to the cage to get back to his feet. Very aggressive, puts a strong pace out there on guys, pushes forward, always in your face, always throwing. Very offensive guard with submissions if he does get taken down. So had a very good performance in his last fight against Amir Albazi. He was coming off of 2 losses, a short notice fight to Brandon Royval, and before that a split decision to Alexandre Pantoja. But arguably won all 5 rounds against Amir Albazi, who's a very tough guy, and I thought was going to be a solid test for him. I did pick Moreno to win that one, but very good performance against a guy like that, whereas Steve Erceg doesn't have tons of momentum right now. Coming off of a knockout loss back in August, and before that lost the title shot to Pantoja, so hasn't won in over a year. Last win was against Matt Schnell, which is, a win over Matt Schnell shouldn't get you a title shot, but that was his last win, was about a year ago, whereas Brandon Moreno, he fought back in November in a 5-round affair with Amir Albazi where he won all 5 rounds. Brandon Moreno, he has more 5-round title fight experience He's been fighting nothing but 5-round title fights or training for 5-round title fights since November of 2020. So over 4 years of, 5-round training camps since he was 27 years old. He's only 31, barely into his prime. He's 5'7", with a 70-inch reach versus Steve Erceg, who's 5'8", with a 68.5-inch reach. So going to be almost the same height. He's going to have a small reach advantage. Steve Erceg, very good wrestling credentials. I just don't think it's going to be enough to keep somebody down like Brandon Moreno. Really good jiu-jitsu as well. I just don't see anybody finishing Brandon Moreno. He's very tough. He's very responsible on the feet and doesn't get hit a lot. If he does, he's got a really good chin. Doesn't get caught in any submissions. I don't think he has any finish losses on his record. Usually they're, decision or split decision. Rear naked choke against Pantoja back in the Ultimate Fighter. That was almost 9 years ago. Other than that, it's all decisions. So it's hard to put the guy away. And I just trust Moreno to be more durable and tougher in a 5-round fight. More experience there. Not going to slow down. He can hurt you on the feet too. If you look at Brandon Moreno, he's got a very good left hook, really strong lead left hook that he drops a lot of people with. He dropped Askarov with it. He's dropped Royval with it, and that's what Steve Erceg was most recently put out with by what's his name, Kai Kara France. It was like a 1-2-3 step through left hook that caught him and put him out. He recovered, eventually put him out. So Steve Erceg, coming off of a knockout loss, you know that he can get put away. He's been finished before, whereas Brandon Moreno, never been finished. He's been beaten, but he's learned from his mistakes. He looks the best he's ever looked in his most recent fight against Amir Albazi, coming off of 2 losses. He's fought the best in the world and either won or gone to very close decisions, split decisions with Figueiredo and Alexandre Pantoja. Another thing to keep in mind is this is going to be taking place at elevation. Brandon Moreno has known to train out of Mexico City, train out of Vegas. He trains at elevation, where Steve Erceg is going to be training at sea level back in Perth, Western Australia. So Moreno's going to have that advantage there. I don't imagine Steve Erceg's moving to Mexico City several weeks in advance to acclimate, and I'm sure even if he is, it's not going to be enough to kind of nullify the advantage that Moreno's going to have there, just naturally training out of there. I got to go with Brandon Moreno. I just think he's the proven dog in this division. He's got a lot more UFC experience, a lot more 5-round experience. He's got that championship level experience. Steve Erceg has 15 fights. Brandon Moreno has 32. He has almost double the fights that he has, and he's only 2 years older than him. So I'm going to go with Brandon Moreno. I think just his grit and tenacity, fighting in front of his hometown, or not his hometown, but his home crowd in Mexico City. More momentum, more experience. I think he wins everywhere in this fight. I think he's going to be able to mix it up a little bit better. I think that Steve Erceg is going to be a little bit tentative on the feet to get hit. Be a little weary to open up against Brandon Moreno, who's willing to take one to dish one, and he's really hard to hurt, really hard to crack, really hard to hold on the ground. I just don't see Steve Erceg having a lot of space to breathe or really take breaks in this fight with Brandon Moreno pushing a pace on him. And they both have really good gas tanks. Steve Erceg's huge for flyweight. Got big legs, very big for the division, but it doesn't really affect his cardio though either. So I'd be curious to see, with kind of a little bit more of a layoff than he's used to, and fighting at sea level in a main event fight against somebody like Brandon Moreno. Curious to see how he performs, but I do think that Brandon Moreno gets this one done. I wouldn't be surprised if he cracks Steve Erceg and finished him, just because he's been looking really good with his boxing. He threatens all levels, like I said, striking. He's not just a boxer. He's not just gonna teep kick your legs and jab. He's gonna be throwing with bad intentions. He'll mix it up with striking. I think Brandon Moreno gets this one done. I think that he could knock out Steve Erceg. Just with his power, the power that he has in his hands, and the very good boxing technique that he has. But more than likely, I think he gets this one done by decision. I didn't have any odds on this fight until just now when I was looking before I made this video, and Brandon Moreno is now showing us a -195 favorite over Steve Erceg. And again, Steve Erceg's super talented, so I wouldn't have been surprised to see him come in as a favorite. But I agree with those odds. I think Brandon Moreno wins this one by decision. Thanks.